Hello, Wonderhussy here, hanging out in the beautiful but very hot Sierra Nevada mountains of Northern California by a very famous bridge. Okay, if you're a movie buff, particularly movies made in the 1980s, well, you might recognize this bridge from being in an iconic 80s kind of like a teen kids movie starring River Phoenix, Corey Feldman, Will Wheaton, and I can't remember the other guy's name. Have I given you enough clues yet? Do you know the movie I'm talking about? That's right, it's Stand By Me. Okay, remember the movie Stand By Me? It was about 4 12-year-old boys hiking through the forest trying to find a dead body. Well, there's this one part in the movie where they have to walk across a railroad trestle. And I think the train starts coming when they're only halfway down the track. And so they have to run all the way across this rickety railroad trestle, crossing, I guess this is an arm of Lake Britain, to get away from the train. Now, I did see that movie when I was a little kid, and it made a pretty big impression on me for a couple of key scenes that I'll get to in a minute, but I don't remember. I feel like a couple of the boys ended up having to jump off the trestle to get away from the train. You know, jump into the cool, refreshing lime green waters of Lake Britain, which, yeah, they do look kind of funky. And they're that weird, almost olive green color, but on a hot day like today, I bet they feel amazing. As a matter of fact, you can even see there's people out here recreating on Lake Britain. How about that? Wouldn't that be fun to drive your jet boat right underneath the iconic bridge from Stand By Me, which even back when they made this movie in the 80s, I think this railroad trestle was supposed to be kind of busted. And it's even more so today. What is it? 30 years later. I think the movie was made in 1986 and I'm shooting this video in 2024, so 24 plus 14. Yeah, 28 years ago. Well, I was gonna say River Phoenix and Corey Feldman ran across this bridge, but that's actually not what happened. They used female stunt doubles. Okay, they needed stunt doubles to do the dangerous stuff because, you know, little Corey Feldman is too valuable to go running across a rickety old railroad trestle. So they had to use stunt doubles, and obviously full-grown men weren't going to pass for 12-year-old boys. So they hired 4 female stunt doubles, and they cut their hair real short, and I guess did their makeup so they kind of looked like little boys. And as a petite female myself, who has often been told that I have the body of a 12-year-old boy, well, that sounds like a line of work I could actually get into and enjoy. You know, I ain't scared to run across some rickety old railroad trestle. I mean, if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know I walk across stuff like this for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so, since I'm here anyway, you guys think we should walk across this old railroad trestle bridge? I mean, it doesn't look that rickety. You know, the metal parts of it are holding up just fine, and the wood, well, the wood is probably fine too. And you can see it's not being used by trains anymore. They have it blocked off. But it doesn't say not to walk across the bridge anywhere. You know what I mean? There's no trespassing sign or anything like that, so I feel like we probably could. Look at this graffiti, though, before we walk across the bridge. Somebody wrote, "Yo, Irene, stand by me. Come on, Irene." Oh, wait, that's a different song. Anyway, it looks like this bridge is kind of like a tourist attraction for probably people of a certain age. Here somebody wrote, "I found the Stand By Me bridge." And then over here, there's a whole bunch of stickers from people that have come out here and presumably walked across this bridge. I mean, we can see, there it is right there. The railroad ties look pretty solid to me. I think we should go for it. Okay, well, it's too late. It's now or never. I already sidestepped this very easily sidesteppable concrete barrier. It's almost like they want people to walk across this thing. And you can see up here that it is pretty solid. And these timbers are not that widely spaced, so it's a pretty easy walk. Oh, well, this one's kind of busted up, but they do have these steel plates reinforcing part of it, so like I said, it's almost like they want you to walk across this thing. And I mean, who would I be to to call myself Wonderhussy if I drove all the way out here to this corner of the lost Sierra and didn't cross this bridge. Look, you can see right over there, there's an auto bridge. That's where the highway crosses this arm of Lake Britain. But of course, cars can't share the same bridge with a train, so they had to have this separate bridge for the railroad. But I guess the railroad don't run through these parts anymore because, well, obviously there's no longer railroad tracks on this trestle. Look, here comes some more people on jet skis. They're probably gonna cruise right underneath us as we walk along this kind of sketchy old railroad trestle. You ain't scared, are ya? Well, don't be afraid. I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. Darling, darling, stand by me. I think that song actually resurfaced on the charts because of that movie. The original name of the story that it's based on is The Body. It's a short story by Stephen King, one of my favorite writers. It was based on a short story of his called The Body, but I guess when it came to making the movie version, they thought The Body sounded too much like a porno movie. And so supposedly they changed the name to Stand By Me because the director, who was Rob Reiner, I guess River Phoenix, one of the actors who played one of the kids, was learning to play the guitar, supposedly. This story may or may not be true. Anyway, River Phoenix was learning to play the guitar. He was practicing by playing Stand By Me. And I think one of the other actors, Kiefer Sutherland, is also in the movie. I think he started singing along with him. And Rob Reiner happened to walk by and heard them and went, hey, that's a great name for the movie. Here come the jet skiers. Boy, that does look fun on a hot day like today. I'm not kidding. It's like 97 degrees down here. If I fell off this bridge into the water, well, assuming I wasn't injured and assuming my phone somehow miraculously stayed dry, I wouldn't really be that upset about it. There they go, coming out the other side. And actually, I just noticed there was a guy in a kayak paddling under me, and I didn't know there was anyone around, so I'm just walking across this bridge, blah, 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 blahing to myself like an idiot, not thinking anyone was listening. Joke's on me. Anyway, this bridge is kind of freaky because there's certain sections of it that are kind of spongy. Yikes. Better not stand on that part too long. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, I was talking about the name of the movie was changed to Stand By Me. And so of course they included the famous song, Stand By Me by Ben E. King, on the soundtrack. Which, by the way, if you remember that movie at all, it had an amazing soundtrack. It took place, I think it was supposed to take place in the summer of 1960. So it had all these classic oldies on the soundtrack, like Lollipop, Lollipop, oh lolly, 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 lollipop. Anyway, I think we're about halfway across the bridge now. You can see on this side, it's just sort of like wilderness surrounding Lake Britain. And then on the other side, well, it's sort of like more wilderness, but I think there's a little town back over that way called Burney. And it's absolutely full of Bernie bros. No, I'm just kidding. It's not Bernie like Bernie Sanders. It's B-U-R-N-E-Y. Burney, California is just right around the bend there. And I'm guessing its economy is pretty much based on tourism, if not this lake itself, then this bridge, and a couple other things that I'll get to later in this video. Anyway, it's hard to imagine these female stunt doubles running across this bridge. I mean, it would be really hard to run on these railroad trestles. It'd be real easy to accidentally step between two of them and, well, twist your ankle or worse. Ugh, even just dipping my foot between those two kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies, like, oh my god, what if I fell? Thankfully, my big fat keister would stop me from slipping between these railroad ties because they're only about, what do you think that is? Maybe 8 inches apart. So that is not enough space for my big old booty to slip between. Saved by my ass again. But it is big enough for my phone to fall through, so I have to be very careful not to drop my phone or I'll lose all the footage I shot. And then what was the point of me driving all the way out here and walking across this bridge and risking my neck in the first place? Anyway, about the female stunt doubles running across this, well, I read online that to shoot this scene, they actually put pieces of plywood across the bridge so that it was a smooth surface that they could run on. So I guess they just shot it from an angle in the movie so you couldn't see that. Hollywood tricks. Nothing is what it seems when it comes to Hollywood. I don't need to tell you. Anyway, I guess most of this movie was actually filmed up in Oregon, just north of the Oregon border. We're not too far from Oregon. We're in pretty far northern California. But there was some small town in Oregon that they shot most of the exteriors at. It's just for this one bridge scene. Well, they needed a real rickety looking railroad trestle. And so I guess what they do when they need a certain location for a movie is, well, they call a location scout. Okay, there's this job apparently one can have in Hollywood called a location scout, and it sounds like an amazing job that I would probably be qualified for. You know, someone's making a movie and they need a rickety old railroad trestle, and so they call this location scout, and well, he either already has a list of locations in his database, or he goes out cruising around looking for one. I'm not sure how this particular railroad bridge was found for that movie, but it's probably at least, I would guess, 300 miles from where the movie was filmed up in Oregon, so it's not like it was right around the corner. Oh, look, there's the guy in the kayak. He's still loitering there, listening to me. And you know how sound carries when it's quiet like this. I'm sure he can hear every word I'm saying. He's probably on the phone calling the police to tell them, hey, come pick up this loony chick who's trespassing on the Stand By Me bridge. I'm not trespassing as far as I know. There were no signs on that concrete barrier. Just a concrete barrier and some barbed wire that had obviously been pulled aside many times over the years. So I feel like I'm perfectly within my legal rights doing this, and actually I think that guy's just fishing anyway. Okay, so anyway, I don't remember a whole lot about the movie. I know it's 4 boys, 12-year-old boys. They're hiking through the woods or something on a multi-day adventure to try to find this dead body, and well, I alluded earlier that I remembered 2 scenes from the movie, or 2 scenes stuck with me. One, I guess it's hot, it's summertime, so they come upon a pond, and they jump into the pond to go swimming, but the pond is full of leeches, and so they have to jump out screaming, pulling these leeches off them, and I think the one kid, the main character, has a leech on his pee-pee. I think that's where it was. I mean, obviously they didn't show that in the movie, but he probably, looked down the top of his swim trunks and went, ah! Which, if I had a leech on my pee-pee, well, the sound I would make would be 1,000 times louder than that. Anyway, the leech scene, and then there was this one other scene where I guess they're camped for the night or they're taking a break, and so the main character ends up going on to become a writer. Okay, I think he's actually based on Stephen King himself. Remember, this is a Stephen King story. Anyway, the main kid grows up to be a writer, and so they take a break in the movie, and he tells his friends a story, because even as a kid, he was always writing stories. Definitely sounds like Stephen King probably was. And so he tells them this story about Lardass Harvey, or I can't remember his last name, but he was a fat kid that everybody used to tease in his small town. They always used to make fun of Lardass for being so fat. And so one day Lardass gets his revenge. You guys remember this from the movie? There's like a pie eating contest. You know how the small town county fairs always have like a pie eating contest? Who can eat the most pies? And so this kid Lardass decides to get his revenge on all the kids in town who've been teasing him for all these years. And so before he enters the contest, he drinks an entire bottle of castor oil. Whoa, I can't imagine taking even a teaspoon, let alone an entire bottle of castor oil, but that's what Lardass does. He chugs a bottle of castor oil and then eats a bunch of pies. Well, I guess that causes him to projectile vomit. If you remember in the movie, there's this scene where they're all sitting on stage eating these pies, and all of a sudden Lardass starts rumbling. And he just pukes everywhere, and that causes a chain reaction of the person next to him pukes, which causes the person next to him to puke, and on down the line till everybody's puking. And reading about the way they shot that up in that little town in Oregon where they filmed the movie, I guess there was a local bakery they used. They tried to use as much local talent as possible. I think all the extras in the movies were locals from that town, and then all the pies in that scene were baked by this local bakery. But they knew that the pies were going to have to be, well, they were going to have some special effects. And so I guess they put cottage cheese curds in the pie filling, so that way when the actors vomited it up, it would look extra chunky, like real puke. Like I said, Hollywood magic. They have their tips and tricks. Okay, well, look at this. We've already come to the other end of the bridge. Here's the barrier at the other side. We might as well go around the barrier and see what's back here. See if anybody fun wrote their name on this side. No, actually, there's hardly any graffiti on this side of the bridge, which leads me to believe most people are probably too scared to walk across the entire bridge. So they just go to that side, they write their name, they take some photos. If they're especially ballsy, they might step up on the bridge a little bit, but I don't think that many people walk all the way across. I may be wrong, and correct me in the comments if I am. If you've walked across this bridge before, let us know when and where and why. I mean, I guess the reason most people walk across this bridge or come to this bridge in the first place is they saw the movie when they were a kid and it left an impression on them. Okay, I guess it was kind of a formative experience for a lot of kids of a certain age, which you would think I would be one of those kids. I figure I was probably about 12 by the time I finally saw the movie. And I grew up in Germany and we didn't always get movies right away when they came out, so I think I didn't see it until maybe 1989 or 1990, so I don't know. I mean, considering I was 12 years old, which is exactly the same age of the main characters of the movie, you think it would have made a bigger impact on me, but I just remember the leech thing and the lard ass thing. So now I guess the only thing to do is make my way very carefully back across the bridge without falling or dropping my phone in the beautiful waters of Lake Britain. I'm sorry I made fun of the color of it earlier. It's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, look at that. I'll just lean my phone over the edge a little bit. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, yeah, it's 97 degrees today, but what a day to be floating on a river, fishing in a kayak, listening to some ding dong yak on and on and on to her cell phone. Okay, I've overstayed my welcome here. Let's get out of here. Whew, not a moment too soon. Not only was my phone about to overheat, but another car just rolled up. And look at that. Washington license plates. See, folks come from all around to check out this bridge. In fact, the dude that was driving that car did walk out on the bridge himself. Look, there he is taking a selfie. Aw, super cute. I love kitschy tourist attractions like this, okay? Call me lame, but it's kind of, well, I've kind of made a living out of going to these kitschy tourist attractions. And so, while I'm here in the area around Burney, there's actually a few other things we might as well go check out while we're here. Okay, check this out. We're at another kind of interesting thing in the area around Burney, or at least it's interesting to me. And that is, I think, this is the Pacific Crest Trail. That's right, you know, the trail that goes all the way from Mexico to Canada, and thousands of starry-eyed young hikers undertake it every year. And oh my God, it sounds like a lot of fun, but it sounds absolutely exhausting. But yeah, look, this is it. Just right off the highway there. Pacific Crest Trail, it says, well, Mexico is 1,417 miles that way. Canada is another 1,233 miles that way. So at this point on the Pacific Crest Trail, well, you're right around halfway. Actually, the true halfway point, obviously, is about 200 miles south of here, I think by a town called Chester. That really is in the Lost Sierra. Okay, earlier in this video I said something about we're in the Lost Sierra. Well, that's not technically accurate. The Lost Sierra is a section of the Sierra Nevada mountains just north of Lake Tahoe that I guess there were a lot of mining and timber towns up there back in the days of the gold rush, but for whatever reason all those towns were abandoned, and well, now there's little, you know, tiny little villages up in there, but there's not a whole lot of very big towns. In fact, the town of Chester is probably one of the bigger towns, and that's the true halfway point of the PCT. But either way, imagine this. Imagine you've been hiking since Mexico, 1,400 miles behind you, and it's hot. I mean, I don't know what time of year hikers would be passing through the halfway point. I feel like we sort of missed all the hikers. I mean, I don't see anyone on the trail right now. I don't know, I feel like PCT hikers usually start out in April, late April, down in Mexico, and they hike up through the desert when it's relatively cool in April and May. And then that way they time it to where when they get to the high Sierra, you know, down by Bishop and Mammoth and Yosemite, they hit all of that in like, well, maybe they're hitting all that right now, July, August, when the hottest time of year, when the snow's all melted, so they don't have to mess with crampons and ice axes. I'm not sure, maybe we're ahead of the PCT hikers. I don't know what time of year they finish. I mean, I would guess if they start in April, they probably don't get to Canada till like September, April. So what is that? April, May, June, July, August. Say 6 months on the trail. 3 months into the hike, you'd be at the halfway point. So if they started in April, May, June, I don't know. I feel like we're here right around the time of year when there ought to be some hikers. Unfortunately, I don't see any. And that's really no surprise to me. I mean, if I was hiking this trail and it was 97 degrees out, and I'm assuming there's probably a pretty substantial chunk of the trail that goes through pretty hot weather. If it was 97 degrees in the afternoon, I'd take siesta, man. I'd get up real early in the morning at daybreak, or even before, and hike as many miles as I could. And then I would just take a break for the whole middle section of the day, because hiking in this heat with a 30-pound pack, whew, it's hard enough backpacking in normal conditions, let alone in this kind of heat. Okay, speaking of the heat, I think it's time to get back in the car and head to the next point of interest, which is a lot cooler than this baking hot, dusty stretch of the PCT. I mean, I wonder if these PCT thru hikers even bother to take little detours. Like that Stand By Me bridge is right off the PCT. And if I was hiking the PCT, well, I might be tempted to chuck my pack off the bridge and just dive on in and have myself a little swim. But seriously, I don't know how that works. I mean, if you're hiking for 6 months straight, wouldn't you want to stop at all the tourist attractions along the way? Or, I don't know, maybe you're just in the mindset like, okay, man, I gotta power through this. Especially after you've already been hiking for 3 months and you finally get to Chester and you go, oh, dang, I'm only halfway and I'm still not out of California. Boy, I don't know if I'd be in the mood for any fun stops at that point either. I might just want to get her done. Speaking of getting her done, let's roll. Okay, I just shelled out $10 to go into this McArthur-Burney Falls State Park. And partly, well, I wanted to come here because it's beautiful, but mostly I'm coming here and I paid the $10 because I knew if I didn't come here, somebody would comment on the video, I can't believe you went to Burney and didn't check out the waterfalls. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like waterfalls just as much as anyone else, but $10? Boy, these better be some spectacular waterfalls. Okay, I guess this is the way to the waterfall. It's not a very long walk from the parking lot. I think it was 150 feet. And it's a nicely paved trail. And, oh yeah, it sure does. It leads to an overlook, looking over this majestic set of waterfalls. Holy cow. Apparently this is a year-round waterfall. It never dries up because it's fed by some kind of underground springs. Absolutely beautiful. I sure do wish we could get down there under the waterfall, you know, to feel some of that cool mist on our face. It's so very, very hot. But unfortunately, wouldn't you know it, the trail that leads to the bottom of the waterfall is closed right now for maintenance, which is the main reason I didn't want to spend $10 to go in here. I knew ahead of time, I read online that the trail is closed, so, well, basically I just spent $10 to walk 150 feet and look over the edge at these falls. So we might as well get our money's worth. Oh, it's so tantalizing though. What a tease on a hot day. Like today, I would love to be down in that pool at the bottom of the falls, just floating in my floaty, drinking an ice cold ranch water. But that's okay, because I happen to have one more point of interest pinned on my map that we can go check out instead. Aha! Did you see that? Pacific Crest Trail hikers scurrying across the searing hot blacktop. Oh my God, those poor guys. First of all, they're not used to searing hot blacktop. They've been walking through the forest for the last 3 months. Secondly, they're not used to 6,000-pound SUVs barreling down the road at them. And thirdly, oh man, they did not look happy about this heat. But I'm happy that I saw them, because it sort of reaffirms my reasoning process. I mean, I was thinking about it as I was driving. I'm exactly halfway into the summer. Today's July 21st. So yeah, those PCT hikers should be coming right through here right about now. And so seeing them, well, it made me feel like I'm not so loony after all. Okay, wow. I'll be honest with you. This last stop, I was kind of like, it's so hot. Do I really feel like going to check this out? And then I saw all these crazy giant sculptures staring at me from the side of the road. And I knew that, yes, I did absolutely have to come check these out. I mean, when am I going to be in this area again? Okay, this is just one of those things that somebody told me about or I read about somewhere, and I pinned it on my map thinking, if I ever happen to be in Burney someday, I'll go take a look. And today is that day. Wow. Okay, so I guess this is some company called Packway Materials Incorporated. It says they sell rock, cinders, landscape supplies, concrete, construction materials, equipment rental. Basically a little this, a little that. And apparently there's somebody here who's quite the artist. I mean, I'm guessing all these sculptures are made out of old materials they had laying around. Like this wiener dog is very clearly made out of an old propane tank. His legs, look at that, they're old hubcaps or wheels. His tongue is oh gosh, I don't know what that would have come from, but there's like a brake pedal or something, isn't it? Oh my God, and then they put a bunch of rocks behind him like he just pooped. Now that I really love. It shows that whoever made these things, whoever runs this place, obviously has a great sense of humor. And if you happen to be watching this video, sir, ma'am, I salute you. Or how old-fashioned of me. Sir, ma'am, them, whatever you identify as, I salute you. Look at this UFO. Then we got this cat. This really, I was gonna say mildly terrifying, but thoroughly terrifying robo kitty. It looks like his face is made out of a truck. Isn't his head the cab of an old truck? I guess they just cut into the radiator to make his little teeth, and then they stuck some rebar in for whiskers. And then over here we've got a giant bespectacled top hat wearing grasshopper, inchworm, centipede, I'm not sure, caterpillar. It looks like the very hungry caterpillar, made out of a bunch of old 55-gallon barrels. Isn't that what that is? They just crunched them up. Here's some kind of condor or wild goose made out of an old muffler. My heart knows what the wild goose knows, and I must go where the wild goose goes. Wild goose, brother goose, which is best, a wandering soul or a heart at rest? Remember that? Tennessee Ernie Ford. Anyway, then we got the Tin Man, a flying pig, an old VW Beetle that's been turned into like a flying, oh God, I don't know what kind of creature that is, but I freaking love it. Look how they put the little teeth coming out of the front hood. So clever. Oh gosh, what's this? Some kind of giant bug with a vent. Oh, it's two vents. Those vents that you put up on the top of a roof to draw out the hot air. They made those the eyeballs. Look how clever that is. I love this. Okay, there's a ton of really cool sculptures here, but in my opinion, the best ones, at least in my current state of near hyperthermia, are these bad boys. We got a penguin, we've got a snowboarder, we've got a skier, and a snowman. Yep, that looks like most of the snowboarders I've known. Checks out. Anyway, this snowman and his snow pals are my favorite part of this admittedly awesome and better than anticipated roadside art exhibit, because they remind me of how cool I could be if I wasn't hiking around in the middle of the day, in the middle of July, in a very hot part of the country, like a darned fool. Fortunately, there's one more place we can go check out. Chatty Cathy's, the best stop on the entire tour of this bizarrely fascinating part of the country. All the places I went in the course of making this video are within like 5 or 10 miles of each other, so if you happen to find yourself in the area of Burney, California, do yourself a favor and check it out, man. There's something for everyone, especially those of us who enjoy ice cold, delicious, frosty raspberry milkshakes. Mmm.